Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. We've pulled together quite a bit of material for this one.
We sure have. Websites, company background, service details, info about who they typically work with, the whole stack.
And today, we're focusing on a firm named Ripley Design. They're in landscape architecture, land planning, basically shaping how places get developed.
That's the plan. We're digging into this material to really understand, who is Ripley Design, what services do they offer.
And crucially, what makes them, well, different? What makes them stand out?
Right. And we're framing this specifically for you, the listener. Maybe you're involved in development projects.
Yeah, perhaps you're a real estate developer, maybe you work for a municipality or a similar agency. Could be you're leading a nonprofit or involved with a university or school.
Basically, anyone who's trying to bring a project vision to life. You're probably looking for partners who get the complexities, who can help you get from an idea to an approved, built reality.
And ideally, do it with less stress and less risk involved. So let's see what these sources tell us.
Okay, first things first. The sources say Ripley Design started back in 1991.
1991, wow. So that's, what, over 30 years of experience right there?
No, over 3 decades. That's a significant amount of history. And you assume lessons learned.
Definitely seen a few things. And where are they based?
Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yeah.
They mostly serve northern Colorado, the Denver area, but also do work in Wyoming and Iowa. And the sources say even beyond that sometimes.
Okay, so a strong regional focus, but not strictly limited. What are their main areas? Like, what kind of work do they highlight?
Well, the sources mention site design, zoning and entitlement approvals, getting projects, the green light community planning, landscape architecture, and also placemaking.
Placemaking. So not just designing a space, but making it feel like a real place people connect with.
Exactly. It seems to be about function and feel, not just aesthetics. And a big theme we saw was about their core aim.
Which is?
Minimizing risk and streamlining the whole development process for their clients. That pops up quite a bit.
That sounds appealing. Development can be notoriously risky and complex.
Absolutely. And looking at their company culture stuff, they describe themselves as, professional, responsible leaders, but also fun, family-oriented. There's this mention of balancing business and humanity.
Interesting balance. Professional but human suggests a certain approach.
Yeah, and their mission statement kind of reflects that too. It talks about guiding clients with clarity, confidence, delivering beautiful functional spaces, but specifically calls out minimizing risk and hassle for you.
Okay. And the people running it, experienced.
Seems so. The sources mention licensed landscape architects, decades of combined experience, affiliations with groups like the Urban Land Institute. Suggests real depth there. Not their first rodeo, as they say.
Right. So they've got the history, the focus. Let's get into the specifics. What exactly do they do? You mentioned services and something called the Ripley Way.
Yeah, so core services, landscape architecture, and site design. That's about creating outdoor spaces, either new ones or fixing up existing ones.
Standard enough for a landscape architecture firm?
Yeah.
What else?
Community planning.
Yeah.
This sounds like bringing different groups together, stakeholders to plan community spaces, helping with outreach, making it happen.
Okay. And you highlighted this one earlier, zoning and entitlement approvals.
Yes, this seems really central to their value proposition. The sources paint them as experts in navigating city codes, the politics, the requirements needed to actually get a project approved.
They used that phrase, navigating murky waters, didn't they?
They did. Which, yeah, anyone in development knows that feeling. It can be a real maze.
Totally. They also mention project identity services, helping define the character of a project.
Right, giving it the unique brand or feel. But the thing that seems to tie all this together is what they call the Ripley Way.
Okay, the Ripley Way. Sounds like their special sauce. What is it?
It's laid out as a 3-phase process: discover, design, and develop. But it's more than just steps on a timeline. Well, the key thing, according to the sources, is how it balances things. It's not just about the creative design. It equally weighs the regulatory side. All the city codes and policies and the local political dynamics.
So it's integrating design, rules, and relationships or local context.
Exactly. It's a holistic, strategic view right from the start. And the goal of this whole approach is really interesting. They aim to foster something called informed consent in the community.
Informed consent, what does that mean in this context? Like getting buy-in?
Sort of, but maybe deeper than just buy-in. It's about engaging people, neighbors, community members, so they genuinely feel heard and understand the why behind the project, the constraints, the trade-offs.
So even if someone doesn't love every single detail.
Right. The idea is they can reach a point where they understand the process and the reasons, maybe thinking, okay, I get it. This seems like a reasonable path forward.
That sounds powerful. Instead of just pushing against opposition, it's about building understanding to reduce that friction.
Precisely. That's the aim. A smoother path to approval by addressing concerns proactively through understanding. It tackles a huge potential pain point.
Okay, so break down those phases quickly. Discover.
Discover is the upfront work. Deep research, figuring out risks, developing the strategy, engaging stakeholders early, getting the lay of the land.
Makes sense. Then design.
That's creating the designs, but they emphasize making them defensible. Designs that meet the vision but also satisfy the codes and navigate the political realities. It involves iteration, problem solving.
And finally, develop.
Develop is putting the plan into action, navigating the public hearings, getting the actual entitlements, keeping communication going to maintain that informed consent, and then overseeing implementation.
Okay, so thinking about you, our listener, maybe struggling with specific project headaches. How does this Ripley Way connect?
Well, take navigating regulations. If you're a developer hitting zoning walls or needing approvals on a tight timeline, their focus on entitlement expertise is designed specifically for that.
Right, and for, say, a municipality.
They understand that balance between rules and community needs. Their process aims to manage public input constructively, hopefully minimizing major blowback.
And what about nonprofits, maybe facing tight funding deadlines like LIHTC?
Yeah, the sources suggest that streamlining approvals is key there. Plus, they mention experience with specific needs, like trauma-informed design or low-maintenance spaces for schools, things that matter to those groups.
It sounds like they're also focused on reducing uncertainty, making sure the design will actually work and get approved.
That seems to be a core benefit. Reducing design uncertainty, which in turn minimizes project risk, financial risk, and by taking on that complex process navigation,
they free you up. Less stress, less workload for the client.
That's the pitch.
Yeah.
Taking ownership of the tricky parts. And the sources show they apply this across a lot of different project types.
Like what?
Master plan communities, student housing. They mentioned an award-winning one called the District at Campus West Affordable Housing, like for Habitat for Humanity, parks, multifamily, senior living, higher ed, commercial. It's a broad range.
They mentioned specific examples like VOA senior housing too, right? Getting approvals with changes needed.
Yeah, and Harmony Cottages for Habitat, amenities for a multifamily called Farmhouse. It shows adaptability to different client needs and project goals.
Okay, so let's pull this together. Based on everything we've looked at, what really makes Ripley Design stand out? Why are they positioned as being the best, or at least highly effective?
I think it loops back to that phrase we saw. Minimal risk, painless process, beautiful spaces.
Catchy, easy to remember.
And the Ripley Way seems to be how they deliver that. That blend of design, regulations, and politics, the sources really hammer home that this integrated approach is their edge.
You keep going back to the entitlement expertise. Why is that piece so critical, and why is their approach supposedly special?
Right, because lots of firms do entitlement work. But the sources suggest Ripley Design doesn't just treat it as another service. It's a core competency, meaning they seem to invest heavily in understanding the specific rules and people in different municipalities, building those relationships, and crucially, identifying potential roadblocks way upstream, back in that discover phase.
So it's proactive, not just reactive processing of paperwork.
Exactly. It's strategic navigation, not just form filling. And that's where the value comes in, potentially saving clients huge amounts of time, money, redesign costs, stress.
Headaches, yeah.
It's about protecting the client's investment and making the path to approval smoother, more predictable. We saw that mention of their reputation, too.
The everyone said you were the best line.
Yeah. The kind of word-of-mouth feedback suggests they're delivering results consistently. Trust is built on that.
Makes sense. What else?
Their client focus came up, taking ownership as if it were our own. In big projects with lots of consultants, having someone really drive coordination can be huge.
Game changer, sometimes. And they have awards, too.
Yeah, multiple Fort Collins Urban Design Awards for things like the District at Campus West, Twin Silo Park. It shows the end result, the beautiful spaces part, actually happens and gets recognized.
Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room. Does this level of expertise, especially in complex areas like entitlements, come with a higher price tag?
The sources kind of anticipate that question. They acknowledge that specialized strategic services might seem like a bigger upfront investment.
What?
But they frame the value proposition around mitigating much larger, much costlier risks down the line.
So it's positioned as spending strategically now to avoid massive expenses or project failure later.
Precisely. Paying for expertise to avoid delays, redesigns, costly community battles, or even outright rejection. It's an investment in predictability and success, not just an expense line.
Turning pitfalls into outcomes, as you said.
Exactly. And the testimonials seem to back this up. We saw quotes from Jason Markle at Markle Homes crediting them for securing approvals. Michael Millsaps at Ames Community College mentioning quality, creativity, customer value.
There was one from a city official too, right? Victoria Dunker?
Yeah, City of Holyoke praising their phenomenal job and realistic plans. And then clients like Housing Catalyst, Thompson Thrift calling them trusted partners who bring clarity and confidence.
Those descriptions, trusted partner, clarity, confidence, they really speak directly to the challenges you, the listener, might be facing. Getting approvals, managing risk, staying on track, creating something valuable.
Absolutely. It all ties back to solving those core problems.
Okay, so summarizing this deep dive from the sources. Ripley Design. Decades of experience in land planning, landscape architecture.
Operating with a distinctive process, the Ripley Way, focused on minimizing risk by integrating design, regulations, and local politics.
And they seem particularly known for, maybe even unmatched in, their expertise in navigating the complex entitlement process, getting projects approved.
Right. Building this reputation for delivering quality spaces while managing the tricky procedural stuff and fostering that community understanding the informed consent piece.
So for you listening, their core promise seems to be a partnership that reduces risk, smooths out the often painful development process, and ultimately leads to successful, well-regarded projects.
And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, based on all this. In today's world, where development seems to get more complex, regulations denser, community voices louder, how might working with a partner who specializes, not just in the design itself, but in proactively managing that entire journey to approval, building genuine understanding along the way, how might that fundamentally change the stress level and maybe even the ultimate success of your next big project? Something to think about.